Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today, on Masechtas Yevamot daf Nun, we are going to begin with the new parak, which is in the middle of Nun and Aleph. Rabbi Gamliel Omer in get acher get. So Rabbi Gamliel says there's no get after get. We're going to be seeing a lot of these Rashis. So in this, Rashi says that, what does it mean in get acher get? Shtei Yevamos l'adam echad. So let's say you have Reuven, Shimon, and Levi. And Levi had two wives, Rachel and Leah. Echad mi'ach echad. And again, they were all from one brother, Levi. So Levi dies. And what does Reuven do? V'nasan get lazu. So he gave a get. The get lazu. So we say, Eno aser b'kroivos shnia. If, let's say, Shimon afterwards gives a get to the same woman, we don't say that Shimon is also going to be usher to her relatives. Dikamahani, because if in fact Reuven given the get helped to have her removed, hapaka zika de terbayu, then the zika also was removed from his brother Shimon. Vahavi kimigarish nachris. It's like he's literally divorcing some stranger, someone that has no connection to him. Vikama lohani. If let's say Reuven giving the get means nothing, so then to push off the latter one will also not help. Even if it's two Yevamim to one Yevama, but nasan zeget v'zeget ha'achron enu klum umutter b'krova seha. So this is what it's coming to tell us. In fact, we're going to see is a machlokus. Now, this is question one. This is question TB 5, which asks, "My nafkamina plutar chachamim im yesh get acher get." So the answer is le'iser b'krovos balos haget hashnia. The second brother who gave this get after his first brother Reuven gave the get, is he also going to be usher to her relatives? V'chein, it says furthermore, b'shtei Yevamos in chaylitz l'balos haget harishayna who put the srasam under yesh ziklik shmuel. Okay, so that's. We didn't really see the machlokus, but this is the sheet of Rabbi Gamliel. So therefore, basically he says, if the first get actually means something that Reuven gave, so then the second get doesn't mean anything because there was the kedusha was the zika was already removed. Weiter in the Gemara, Mishnah v'lo maimer achar maimer. So it's the same case. You have Reuven, Shimon, Levi. Levi had died. So instead, Reuven, instead of giving Rachel a get, instead he does maimer. On this Rashi says, Bein biyavam echad l'shtei yavamos, bein shtei yavamin l'yavam achas, hacharon in klum. So let's say, again, Reuven did maimer, and then Shimon does maimer again to the same woman. So we said that the second maimer doesn't mean anything. Lifsol eseri shaina olav. That's not going to passel the first one. Get will also be hashnia. So because if Reuven did maimer to Rachel, then Shimon did the same thing. So again, that second maimer is not going to mean anything. And one bia will not work after the other bia. So again, this is referring to Reuven had bia with her, and then the second brother had bia. So Rashi says that's bias nus ba'almahu. All that Shimon did was had bias nus. However, that's not going to answer him to her relatives. Furthermore, v'lo chalitza achar chalitza. So again, if Reuven did chalitza, which again similar in a certain way to the get, so he did chalitza, which was paka, was removed the zika. So once he did that, so now when Shimon does chalitza, it doesn't mean anything. No. Yesh get acher get, yesh maimer acher maimer. So he disagrees. The Chachamim say that actually there is a get after a get, which means the second brother, Shimon, who gave a get, can aser himself to her relatives. So too, when it comes to maimer. Maimer has some power, and therefore it could aser the second guy who did maimer. Alternatively, as Rashi says, that with the requirement of having to give a get. When it comes to chalitza, you're right. Once chalitza is done, another chalitza doesn't mean anything. When one bia is done, the other bia is nothing. Fine. Ketzad. So now the Mishnah explains this. Also, maimer biavimtoi. So let's say, not that it's one and the same, but let's say first Reuven, again, Levi died. So Reuven, if Reuven and Shimon left, so Reuven did maimer to Rachel. But Nasan leget. And then after he did maimer, which brings her to him, he then gives her a get. So sricha hemena chalitza. So in this situation, chalitza is necessary, says Rashi. V'im ratza lichnos. And if, let's say, he wanted to marry her, lichnos, he can no longer marry her. Why? Says Rashi, the hiskel begerishin karmelei b'lo yivna. Once he already, this brother, even though he did maimer, but since he gave a get, it's no longer is he able to do yibum. Rather, he has to do chalitza, because he already started the process of removing her by the giving of a get, and therefore you need the chalitza to remove the maimer. Also maimer, let's say he did maimer, as we said before, v'chalitza, and then he did chalitza, sricha menu get. In this situation also, you need a get. Why? So Rashi says the chalitza afkatolas ikasai, that the chalitza removes the zika, the original zika. However, boy get lafuki kedushin delay the chalitza loy mafkin kedushin. However, since you did maimer, which is a kedushin, so you need a get to offset that. Also maimer uboil harzuka mitzvasa. So let's say you did maimer, which again is the kedushin to rabbanan, and you also did bia, so you did both actions which bring her close to you, and you did the mitzvah. And Rashi says, "Mefarish Gemara afzu k'mitzvasa." We'll see why he has to say in Rashi that this is also a mitzvah. Okay, because you don't have to do maimer; you could just do yibum right away. Nasan get. Let's say again, Reuven gave a get. So that was a case of you did maimer. So if you did maimer, so and all the other, if you did maimer, then you did something else. So then, if you did chalitza, so you need a get. You gave a get, you need chalitza. If you did bia, so then you're married to her. Now, let's say you gave her a get, which again removes her. Then v'asa maimer, you did maimer, which brings you close to her. So sricha get v'chalitza. You need both things. You need the get because of the maimer. You need chalitza because of the you need the get because of the maimer. You need the chalitza because of the connection to the get. Okay. So sricha get v'chalitza. So again, since you already gave a get and you did maimer, sricha get v'chalitza. Fine. Nasan get uvoil. So let's say you gave her get, but then you had bia with her. Sricha get v'chalitza. Again, you need get and chalitza. Nasan get v'cholutz, which these are two things that separated you from her. Enu achar chalitza klum. That's it. You did everything. She's obviously, what else are you going to do? You did chalitza and get. So that's it. You don't have to do anything else. So we talked about all the situations. If you did maimer and then other things afterwards, what the din is. If you gave a get and then you did other things, what the din is. Now it talks about cholutz. So let's say you did chalitza, which you removing her. You also maimer, and then you decided to marry her through maimer. Or the second action is the nasan get. After the chalitza, you gave her a get. Or uboil. But your first action was chalitza, which is removing her. Oh, let's say you did the opposite. Boil, you actually had tashmish, which is the strongest connection to her. Biasa maimer, and you did maimer, which of course is also a way of bringing her close. Nasan get v'cholatz, or let's say instead you gave her a get and you did chalitza. So ein achar chalitza klum. So there's no chalitza. There's nothing after that. Okay, that's it. Once that is done, that is done. As we continue to nun amid base. Now on this the Mishnah continues and says achas yevamot achas liyav achas yevamot achas liyavam echad v'achas shtei yevamos liyavam echad. It doesn't make any difference if we're talking about one yevama or two yevamos. As we said, if Levi has one wife, when Levi died, Rachel, or he had Rachel and Leah, it doesn't make any difference because once you do Yibum or Chalitza to one of them, that removes the other one because they're all from the same bias. So once you do one of these actions, the dinim are the same whether there's one Yevama or two Yevamos. Ketzad. So now the Gemara again goes and Mishnah goes a little bit more in depth over here as well. Asa Maimer Bazu, Umaimer Bazu. So let's say you have these two women and you did Maimer with both Yevamos and there's again just one Yavam. So in that situation, Sricha Shtei Gittin v'Chalitza. In that situation, you need two Gittin. Why? Says Rashi, Karabanan. Diyesh Maimer Acher Maimer. Even though you did Maimer, they still say that there is a concept of, and you did Maimer to the other one, so there's Maimer Acher Maimer. The Yavume lo the Heichel Avid. Il Yavumi lo Tervayu Habilu Shnei Batim. You can't do Yibum with both of them because you can't have Shnei Batim. V'ilachada, you can't do Yibum with one. Hoya v'chaverta be'agida habili boine Shnei Batim. Since you already started this action of doing Maimer, so because you did Maimer, that already brings both of them in. So you can no longer only do Yibum with one of them. You can't do Yibum with both. You can't do Yibum with one once you already started the process of Maimer with both of them. So therefore, all you can do is you have to give both of them Gittin. However, you also have to do Chalitza. But you only have to do, as Rashi says, L'achas mehen, upoiteres sarasa. That once you do Chalitza, we know if, let's say you didn't do anything, you just start off with Chalitza and did Chalitza with one Yevama, so the other Yevama, since it's coming from the same brother, from Levi who died, so that's it. The other one you have to do anything with. Once Chalitza is done with one of them, that's it. So therefore, the get will remove the Maimer, and then you're almost like back somewhat where you started, because you can't do Yibam anymore, but now you can do Chalitza with one of them. Okay, let's say instead of doing Maimer with one and Maimer with one, let's say it was Maimer Mizu v'get Lazu. So you did Maimer with one woman, which brings her close, and you gave the other Yevama a get. So Sricha get, so you need to give a get because of the Maimer that was done, but Chalitza. And you also need to do Chalitza. Maimer Mizu boil as Zu. So this is, again, you brought both of them close. So Sricha's beis gittin v'Chalitza. In that situation, since the first case was you only did Maimer with one, so you only have to give a get to one of them. However, in this situation, because Maimer was done, there was Maimer in Bia, they were done, there's a Maimer, there's a Bia, which were a connection to both of them. That's when Srichas beis gittin. That's why now you need both gittin, either for the boil and for the Maimer, and then the Chalitza, and then you do Chalitza to one of them. Maimer bezu v'cholitz bezu. So let's say you did Maimer again, which brings her in. The other woman, the other Yevami did Chalitza. So Rishon is Sricha get. The first one, since you did, as we said, Maimer, so you need a get to remove the Maimer, and that would be it, because you did Chalitza with the other one, so that Chalitza is all you needed to do. Get Lazu v'get Lazu. So let's say you gave a get, Reuben gave a get to Rachel and Leah. So Sricha is the men of Chalitza. So in that situation, you still need to do Chalitza. Says Rashi, why do you have to do Chalitza? After all, you just give them both Gittin. So Rashi says, Srichas and Chalitza, Achas. You only have to do one. The Asi b'kroy v'shniya the Rabbananhu. Diermi yesh get acher get. So according to the Rabbanan, they say there is a get after get. So therefore, because of that, even though you gave a get, and then you gave the second one a get, and we're not done b'vasachas, so therefore, because of that, that second get is also chal. And therefore, again, in that case, you need to do chalitza. Get lazu voil at zu. Let's say you gave one a get, and you had bia with the other one. Sricha get v'chalitza. So you need the get to remove the bia, and then the chalitza to any of them. Get lazu, maimer lazu. So let's say you give a get to one, but then you did maimer, brought her close to the other one. So sricha get. So you need the get for the maimer and b'chalitza. Get lazu v'chalitza lazu. Let's say you gave one a get, the other one you did chalitza. So you're separating both of them. So ein achar chalitza klum. Since you already did chalitza, so that's it. You don't have to do anything else, because the other one is not bar close, so you don't have to do anything after that, and therefore you also don't have to do chalitza because it was already done with the other one. Cholatz v'cholatz or cholatz v'yasamayim. Let's say you did chalitza and chalitza, or you did chalitza and then mimer, or v'nosan get uvoil. Let's say what you did was, or you gave a get and then had bia, or boil uvoil. Oh, boil. Let's say we're talking about you first had bia, that was your first action. V'asa mimer, and then you did another action of bringing close a mimer. Nasan get v'cholatz. Nasan get v'cholatz. You give a get in chalitza, in achar chalitza klum. Ben yovam echel l'shtei yevamos, ben shtei yevamo yevama achas. So you said it doesn't make any difference, it's one or two. Chalatz, so that all of those permutations, all the situations had to do, we talked about giving a get, and then all the things that happen afterwards. Bia, again with two yevamos, same thing. Now we're talking about chalitza. Let's say your first action was chalatz. You did chalitza with one. V'yasa mimer. So nasan get, right? So or nasan get uvail, or boil v'asa mimer, but nasan get v'chalatz ein achar chalitza klum, bein batchila, bein be'emsa, bein basof. So it doesn't make any difference when you did chalitza. Whether the chalitza was your first action, you did chalitza in the middle, or at the end. Once you did chalitza, that removes the zika. And even though other things may have been done before or after or in the middle, so the reality is that chalitza stands, and therefore you don't have to do anything else afterwards. If you look at Rashi, ein lachar chalitza klum, says Rashi, di'i hadar mekadesh la. Let's say you would go and be Mekadesh your co-wife, lo tafsi ba kedushin Rabbi Akiva. Rabbi Akiva holds that kedushin is not typhus. Okay. So that is when it comes to chalitza. Wherever chalitza is done, beginning, middle, end, it's chal. However, how about when it comes to bia? Does bia have this similar ability? Let's look at Rashi. Bein mechil b'em emsa. Bein maimer Laget Kugoin get lazu v'cholitz lazu right. You did first you give a get and then you did the chalitza. The chaz be also mimer. O balas I get lo mahani mimer lo mahani this basop achar mimer v'get cholatz. Let's say after those mimer and a get, then you did the chalitza. In acharei klum, you don't have to do anything else. V'chalitza gemurahi. That's considered to be a chalitza. It doesn't make any difference when one action was first or in the middle. Just as long as chalitza was done, that's it. And it says Rashi, ihadar oven mimer. Since the chalitza works, that removes them. So if you would do mimer afterwards, that means nothing. And therefore, little boy get the chalitza gerishin gemurin he, because the chalitza is completely disconnecting. V'kama belav gomerle. V'avka the chalitza psul havoy. Okay, so let's go back in the Mishnah. That's when it talks about chalitza. However, b'ila, that's chalitza v'yasamaim. So we say ben betchila be'emsa b'soif. Ha'b'ila b'zmachi he betchila in acharei klum. When it comes to the bia, once that was done first, so then we say, and only in that situation, there's nothing after that. However, be'emsa, well, the bia was in the middle action, v'asoif, or at the end. In other words, there was chalitza or mimer or all these other things before bia. Bia was not the first action. In achareha klum. Then all the things afterwards don't mean anything. Says Rashi, habia be'emsa could go and get lazu uva lazu. Let's say first you gave Rachel a get, and then afterwards you gave Leah. You did bia. The chaziv yasa mimer b'shlishis. Asr b'krov. In all those situations, you're going to be asr to her relatives. B'sof, says Rashi, you gave get lazu, b'umaymer lazu, b'chazer uba al achas. And then you did bia last. So first you gave a get, the other one, then you did mimer, and then you do bia. Yesh acher bia zu zikas yevamot. So v'chim mapikla, when she leaves, b'chalitza v'lo saglo b'get. In that situation, the get is not enough. You actually need to do chalitza. Because, fine. In acharei klum, v'nafka b'get, then she goes out with a get, uvolo chalitza. V'hadar kaddish, if you marry her, le'idach acher b'ilo lo mahani. Okay. So let's go back in the Mishnah. So when it comes to b'ilo b'zmachi, he b'tchila in acharei klum. Be'emsa b'sov yesh acharei klum. Rabbi Nechemi Omer no. Achas b'ila v'achas chalitza, bein b'chila bein be'emsa bein b'sov in acharei klum. So according to Nechemia, he says no. Even when it comes to bia, if it's be'emsa or besof, the same din applies. So now let's continue with the Gemara. Ad kan lo plegi oleha. The only time Rabbi Gamliel, who says ain't get after get, and Rabbi Gamliel and the Rabbanan say no, there is get after get. As we said, therefore, if Reuven gave a get, and then Shimon gave the same woman a get, if that get means nothing, the second one, so it didn't really do anything, so then Shimon should be allowed to marry her relatives. But if the get actually does mean something, it means that there was some connection somehow, and therefore he'd be also to the relatives. Now, they only argue el beget achar get, u'maimer achar maimer, as we saw in the Mishnah. However, first wide line, el get echad b'yavama. Let's say you gave a get to a yavama, u'maimer echad b'yavama, and you gave maimer to another one, mahani. So in that situation, that mimer actually means something. It's only when it's a get after a get, or mimer achar mimer. But if, let's say, one brother gave a get, and then the other one did mimer, so that mimer actually means something, even though the first one already gave a get. Says Rashi, O mimer echad b'yavama, mahani get b'yavama. So we said if there was, let's say, one gave a get, so the get helps. So this guy is no longer, because he gave a get, the first brother is not able to do yibum. However, the second one who did maimer, get. Now the second one will at least need a get for the maimer that he did, if he wants to remove her. Now, mahani. So my time Rabbanan get b'yavama mahani. So why? And this is actually going to be a couple questions coming up. Why do the Rabbanan say a get when it comes to yavama is mahani? Says Rashi, ha midaraisa chalitzahu. If in fact chalitza midaraisa it's a chalitza, the mahani ba mishum get lo kribe shel yivna. Says the Gemara mishum de mahani ba'alma, because when it comes to a regular woman, we know a get works. So what? It says Rashi, B'chol anashim. When it comes to all women, lisgarish. V'i amrid hacha lo mahani. If you give a get to a normal woman, a woman's married, get will free her. Now the problem is, if we says Rashi, lo mahani, that giving a get doesn't do anything, doesn't mean anything, the im ratzol kainza achar get yichnois, and then if he wants to marry after the get, he's allowed to do so. So the amrit lo mahani, if in fact you want to tell me it doesn't work in our case, amri get lohoitzia v'chalitza lohoitzia. A person will say, well, the get is to remove her, so is chalitza. Midiget lo mahani, and just like for the later Yavam, when he gave a get, first Reuven gave a get, and then Shimon gave a get. That second person, the second Yavam, who did give a get doesn't mean anything, has no power. So maybe you would think chalitza nami lo mahani. You would think also if this guy would have done chalitza, wouldn't help. Vasa lemi boil achar chalitza, and therefore you would say, okay, he did chalitza, so now he can do bia because it really wasn't a chalitza. No, the fact is that there could be that error that could take place. Look in Rashi. Mishum de ba'alma mahani, as we saw. So Amri, Inshi, people will say, get lohoitzi v'chalitza nam lohoitzi. Umini get lo mahani le. So a get after a get doesn't do anything. The second one who gave a get doesn't mean anything. And therefore he could marry his relatives, her relatives. So too a get after chalitza, maybe this guy could also marry her relatives. But the din is no. And therefore, that because of that potential issue, that's why the Rabbanan say that there is an element of mimer that is biyavama the mahani. That if you gave a get and then mimer afterwards, because the issue is that a person can make the mistake and think if you did chalitza, it doesn't mean anything. So therefore, because of that, they say no. That when it comes to mimer, also it's mahani. If the first brother gave again, the second one did mimer. So my time Rabbanan bi psula yeshach klum. Why did the Rabbanan say that if, let's say, it's a bi psula? In other words, it wasn't because he already had a zika and he just did yibum, it was a bia psula that he did. Yesh achar klum. In other words, that there's still a zika and chalitza still needs to be done. So Amri, bia achar get. If you would say that there's bia after giving a get, he gezer bia achar get mishum bia achar chalitza. So you would think that after you did chalitza, that the bia would be valid and you would still be able to do yibum with her. And therefore, because of the issue of bia after chalitza, so therefore we also, which we don't want a person to do, so we'll also say the same thing when it comes to bia after a get, and therefore after a get. That's why you still need to do chalitza. Now v'i bia achar maimer he gezer bia achar maimer mishum bia achar bia. Fine, and again fine. My time amar Rabbanan hay chalitza psula ein achreha klum. So why did the Rabbanan say that when it comes to chalitza psula, there's nothing afterwards? So Amri, my ligzer, what should they say? Nigzer chalitza achar get mishum chalitza achar chalitza kol kihani tachlitz v'tezel. So let's say they did chalitza. So what? It's not an issue. There's a big deal if you did chalitza, so it releases her. Ligzer chalitza achar maimer mishum chalitza achar bia. So maybe we should be geyser chalitza that's done after maimer because a chalitza that's done after bia. Ought to what? Chalitza achar maimer milu boy get lo mamaro chalitza. So what do you mean? You still have to give a get because of the maimer. Chalitza achar bia nami boy get lo biaso. So chalitza after bia, you also need a get because of the bia. So therefore, that's not going to be an issue. Okay, we're going to stop there. Let's just see a couple of questions. Question 1. Matam de Omer Rabbanan Maimer Mahani Biyavama. Why did the Rabbanan say that Maimer actually has some power when it comes to the Yevamot? So again, according to the Rabbanan, they say Ein Get Achar Get, Ein Maimer Achar Maimer. However, if let's say it's not the exact same ones, Reuven does Bia, and then Shimon does Maimer. So in that, Reuben gives a get, and then Shimon does Maimer. For some reason, they hold that that's Mahani, that Maimer is enough to be able to link them together. The question is, why would he say that? So he says, so the answer is like this: the Iyamrit lo Mahani. If you would want to tell me that the Maimer that the second brother does means nothing, right? That it didn't link them to Asur to the Kroivim. If that's the case, Amri, people say, Maimer liknois, Ubia liknois, that both of them have the ability to bring people together, right? Maimer brings them together, so is Bia, okay? Umid liknois, umid Oimer lo mahani Bia nami lo mahanya ve'asel amibol bais achar bi'ila. A person would maybe make a mistake in boil the other bias after bia, the asur deraisahu. So that's the reason. So let's look at this Gemara. I'm not sure if I skipped this actually. My time Amar Rabbanan Maimer biyavama mahani mishum de mahani ba'alma, because we know that Maimer. My time Amar Rabbanan Maimer biyavama mahani, because it works in general. The Amri lo mahani. If you tell me that Maimer doesn't do anything, so Amri Maimer liknos bia liknos. The Maimer lo mahani. If Maimer doesn't work after the get, Bia nami lo mahani. So then you would say that Bia also doesn't do anything. Yasal mibul achar Bia. And therefore a person will end up having Bia after Bia. So he wasn't supposed to do that. It's Isser Deraisa. So therefore because of that, that's the reason why they were geyser. Okay, let's see maybe another question. TB. Okay, TA 3. Madua tiknu the get mahani biyavama. Why did they institute that a get helps when it comes to a Yevama? And he says in parentheses, Ma yomru, ma yichshlu machmas hatois. What mistake could be made? Why did they say that the get helps to the giving of the Yevama? So he says, because yomru, people will say, Midiget, if let's say it doesn't do anything, you would say, oh, the get that was given means nothing. They would say, Midiget lo mahani, chalitza nam lo mahani. Just like you gave a get means nothing, so chalitza also means nothing. Yosel mibul achar chalitza. And you may end up having B after chalitza. But once you did chalitza, that's it. You can't do that. And therefore, because of that, we say that the get is mahani. Ad kan.